Exclusive interviews with the world's most influential market leaders and rising entrepreneurs. This is the Rocco Forino Show on the Business Connection Network. Today on the Rocco Forino Show.
Your cafe model. Hey, Thursday night we're going to have class. We're going to have networking. We're going to have office hours. We're going to have free beer. We're going to, there are ways that a community can be self-policing.
So I'm so happy to be here with Teresa Esser. She's an author, speaker, angel investor, and we're going to talk about all that today. So Teresa, tell us about yourself and Silicon Pastures.
Okay. Silicon Pastures is an angel investment network based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was started in 2000. I took over running the group in 2005. We have made more than 60 angel investments, and the reason why I say more than 60 is because each individual angel investor gets to choose whether or not they want to invest in any particular deal. What I promise angels is there will be 8 meetings per year, and we will see 2 or 3 companies at every meeting.
Great. And has any of the 60, have any exited so far?
Oh, yes. We've had a number of exits. Some of the exits were made they were investments that happened before I got there. Buy costumes, buy seasons is one famous example. Investors made up to 15 times their money. Some of them made 11 times their money on that deal, depending on when they invested and when they re-upped. Another company called Prodessa was another big exit. Personally, I started off with biosystem development, Clearant, Lucigen, Red Anvil, Forte Research Systems, Geni. These are some ones I'm remembering off the top of my head.
Are these all? Are they all Midwest specifically?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of them are Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Illinois. We've been focusing on the Midwest, focusing on especially Milwaukee. That's where we're based.
All right. So tell us about your trade mission and what you hope to accomplish with the trade mission.
Okay. So we brought a group of Korean entrepreneurs to Milwaukee and then on to Boston. And this trip was sponsored by the Korea Institute for Design Promotion, or KIDP. And we wanted to help figure out how Koreans could enter the United States. How could they land here and set up businesses here? What would be the best place for them to land? And our argument to them was, what about if you landed in the center of the world's largest market? What about if you came straight to Milwaukee? And then, they said, well, how would we do that? What would it be like? So we put on this week of meetings. We had a lunch, and we invited lots of people to come forward to say, I would like to figure out how to work with some Korean entrepreneurs. I have an idea. And we even had an idea contest. So we rented a venue. We invited people to lunch. 78 people registered, I think. And we got 30 submissions for how can I work with a Korean company. And then, you can set up a partnership. These were startups, so a lot of the people who came were also startups. And I asked them to submit the pieces, the ideas on pieces of paper, because sometimes when English is your second language, it's easier to read the proposal as opposed to verbalizing it.
Yep.
And so we picked a winner, a company called Platform and a company called DODLES, I think it's Doddles, were the winning combination, but there were lots of other ideas, and they're continuing, we're continuing to follow up. So there were 4 different educational companies that came to talk about their educational curriculum that could be commercialized or used in schools. And I wanted your listeners to know about a bigger contest, which is happening. It's called the K Startup Grand Challenge, or K-Startup, STARTUP GC.org, kstartup.org. where it's a much bigger contest, and they have the opportunity to strike up partnerships with large Korean companies, and that's an amazing opportunity, much bigger than the small trade mission we did a couple weeks ago.
So, do you know who puts that on, and do you know the timelines for the K startup?
You need to go online and fill out an application before, I think, June 15th or June 14th.
Okay.
Definitely, get started. You've got a little over, about 9 days or something like that.
Okay.
8 days. And who's it being put on by? You could say it's put on by the Korean government. Which government ministry? I don't remember. I know that they're going to judge during July.
Okay.
And once you get rolling, once you get designed in, once you get such a huge entity behind you, there's really no limit to what you can do. So I would definitely look at the website and check it out, make sure it's not something that you want. And then I would say, if it is something that you want and you don't happen to win this particular contest, by all means, try to find out what's plan B. Or if you say, hey, I really want to go to Korea, there's just lots of programs.
Right.
You could take advantage of whether or not it's part of this contest.
Yeah, it sounds like a great opportunity. I would definitely recommend any of the listeners interested to definitely get on there and put out their business. Are you looking for business proposals or something more tangible? Like, is it already something already together?
A business that wants to get on a plane and fly to Korea and live there for a while and figure out how to do business.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I'm highly motivated. I think that we all need to reimagine ourselves. And I think that's something that you touch on with your work with opportunity zones.
Right.
There are parts of the United States, there are parts of cities where if somebody came in with a fresh perspective, they would say, wow, what an opportunity. Just by being foreign, by being new, by being you just shake everything up and you say, this is an amazing opportunity to build something. And you don't have all the baggage, and you don't have all of, everything that's holding you back. It's just a totally new blank slate opportunity for you. Whereas somebody else who might have grown up there, they've got all their whole life of limitations and past memories. Just start over somewhere else. Spend 3 months, or bring in new blood. Bring 10 new Korean entrepreneurs to Milwaukee and say, well, what could you do here?
Right. Yeah, that's a great idea. I like it. I hope it really takes off for you too. I mean, I think reaching out globally is a great idea. It just gives people better perspective of the world. I mean, look at Steve Jobs. He went to India before he started Apple. And I believe.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep, and that's kind of where he got his zenness for like very clean design, not everything being overly designed and too busy. And that's when after that trip to India, he really was focused and pretty much changed the trajectory of Apple at that point. Same thing with Howard from Starbucks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Starbucks. I mean, he went to Italy and he was like, "Wow, I really like the concept of this. Where people get together and drink coffee." So when he went to Italy, that was his fresh perspective. So you're right. When you step out of your your comfort zone or wherever you live, and really get a feel for global culture, you could come back to the United States and create billion and trillion dollar companies. So yeah,
exactly, at lower risk because it's already been tested somewhere else, and you're just essentially applying what works. You're solving an arbitrage problem. You're saying, this worked really, really well over there. What if it just comes and takes off over here? And I think that's another interesting thing about these whole opportunity zones is, what if we just do something that we know is going to work and we just put it here where the rent is lower and we get clear tax benefits for doing it here?
Yeah, definitely.
So these are all interesting.
So I heard you speak at the Family Office event in March. And you were probably one of the few speakers that really got the audience cheering and clapping. And so I actually got it on video too. So if you want it, I'll send it to you. But you said the Midwest has a trade surplus I want the United States to manufacture more, sell more. My mission is to help the United States export more. And I was like, wow, this is someone I'd really like to do deals with, because it really spoke to the crowd, because everybody who has money clearly wants the United States to be the leader in the world for the next 100 years. But it just seems like if people don't say things like this, or they're not motivated, it just doesn't get done. So, that kind of motivated me. I liked your presence and, what you had to say. So it was really cool.
Thanks.
Because not a lot of people are saying it at these conferences. Most of them, all they talk about is real estate. And I don't think people understand is that entrepreneurship creates jobs. Jobs creates income, which allows you to afford, eventually, real estate, rent, stuff like that. I mean, this country has to lead with entrepreneurship and business. So, that's where I kind of had a link with you. I was like, wow, she's great. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And you can use big data to figure out how to lower the risk when you're trying to learn how to export. So I'm a big fan of using the resources that we all pay for when we pay our taxes. I'm in favor of using the United States Department of Commerce. There's a program called Export Tech, or Export Tech.
Okay.
Which every time you send a package outside the United States, you have to fill out a customs form. And you have to say the dollar amount and the place where it's going. And the SIC code, SIC or NAICS.
Right.
That's the category. Like, is it a book? Is it a chair? Is it a table? Is it a form? Everything has a SIC code. And so all of that goes into this database. And so if you show up at Export Check and you say, hey, I'm a manufacturer, I'd like to figure out how to export, they'll say, well, have you thought about, they'll run it through the program. The big data will look at trends, and they'll say, well, have you thought about Brazil? And you'd say, no, I was thinking of trying Denmark first. And they say, well, products in your SIC code are doing really, really well in Brazil right now. Have you thought about trying to export to Brazil? What about a trade mission? And then you can say, well, that would never have occurred to me. And that's where I think, in the world, we have to let go of our ego and just let the data tell us what we should be doing. Let the big data say, what about if you did it this way? What about if you turned all your assumptions upside down? What about if you said, instead of saying, oh, I'm scared of that neighborhood, you say, you know what? That's an opportunity zone.
Right.
And, I should figure out how to manufacture here and export. Yeah.
So that's cool. That's a real functionality of a government website now? It gives recommendations?
Yeah, Export Tech.
Wow.
Anyone can go to Export Tech. It's really one of the most underutilized things that I know about. We had a governor and a lieutenant governor just left, and their entire mission was, have you thought about exporting? What about Export Tech? Would you like to go through Export Tech? Wisconsin does not have a lot of state support for entrepreneurship, but they do have grants for exporting, for learning how to export. Go through this program. There are scholarships you can get from the city of Milwaukee, scholarships to help pay for the cost of showing up, going to school, learning. Once you go through, you can get a grant to learn how to export. It's a very high probability of winning the grant unless you owe back taxes. I mean, seriously, learn to export. Do it. All the data says we should be doing this, and it's also common sense, in my opinion. I think the only thing that's holding us back is fear of the unknown, which is why I want to bring those Koreans here and say, hey, look at them. They're just like us.
Right.
You don't have to be afraid.
Wow, that's crazy. I never thought that because I remember when I got out of college, one of the things, because I studied international business and finance, they showed us how to use all the websites, but they weren't recommending anything. It was just, like you said, SIC codes, NAIC codes. So there was just actually so much information about like what you could possibly export, but trying to figure out where was probably a lot harder. So that's great that's an option now.
Yeah.
So you wrote the book, The Venture Cafe. And I have to say it was probably one of the best books I've ever written on entrepreneurship. You really dive
Thank you.
You really dive into some really emotional and timeless topics that most entrepreneurship books hardly ever cover. And this is a book I wish I read when I started my first business in 1999, after I graduated college. So I could have avoided quite a few mistakes. But what inspired you to write the book, and did you write it during your husband's startup NBX or right after? When did you? At what point did you begin writing it?
So I was 100% focused on writing a book and being an author from like childhood.
Okay.
So then I studied writing in college. I got a job working in book publishing, so I could learn how to publish a book. I was an editor. I was like, I'm going to take the job. I'm going to be the one that controls it. That controls whether or not that contract gets out. I thought it was impossible. But I thought I would figure it out, how to do it. So I was taught to follow the money, and the money was going into venture capital in 1998. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to write a book. How do venture capitalists make the decision about who they're going to invest in? How do they decide that? I'm going to find out. And so I interviewed them. I didn't know any answers. I said, I'm going to go. I bet people will spend an hour with me over a cup of coffee, and I can interview everybody, and then I can learn everything, and I won't be bothering people more than an hour. But some of them might have some good stories. So that was the point. I was also inspired by a couple things. One, the Cheers television show. You want to go where everybody knows your name, and
right.
then a book by Joseph Mitchell called Joe Gould's Secret, where Joe Gould was going around trying to create an oral history of our time in the 30s in New York. And I said, that's brilliant, an oral history of our time. Who doesn't want to contribute to an oral history of our time? So the time was 1999, 2000, 2001. People were very, very candid until the market crashed, but they were very candid in 1999, right. 2000.
Yep.
So I just interviewed them. I did a lot of interviews then.
Yeah, it was really well done. So for the listeners out there, if you're ever thinking about starting a business, this book covers all the topics that really hit some deep emotional points. And so I broke down your book by a few chapters that I want to cover, because part of the podcast is to delve into the brains of entrepreneurs and what they need to do, and then see how we could connect them with maybe venture capitalists, and they don't know how. A lot of people don't know how to make the connection. But before I talk about the first few questions in the chapter, have you ever seen the Silicon Valley show?
I have, yes.
Do you think they ripped off any of your content? Because a lot of what you talk about, it's like every episode is like something out of your book, except they make it funny, even though it's like, getting sued for a trademark infringement, it's a disaster, or someone steals your code, or they've got so many topics that kind of follow your books, the titles of your book, the chapters. It's crazy. But
well, I think it's just universal among all entrepreneurs. I don't know that they, that maybe they just came up with the same ideas on their own. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but yours is pretty much emotional. It tells the raw truth of failure, people waiting things out until foreclosure and stuff like that. That's that's what entrepreneurship is. I mean, you're believing in this idea and in yourself for things to just happen, and sometimes they just don't. But no, it's good to know. So
right.
do you think it's funny, that show, or what is your take on it, just out of curiosity? Silicon Valley.
So I just have to be completely honest. I'm female here, and the world of venture capital is approximately 94% male.
Right.
So that is the thing that jumps out at me when I watch that show. So, when I watch that show, I say, you know what? I need to do a really, really good job at what I do so that I can ignore that show.
Right.
Because I just need to focus on my own work, and I don't want to think about everything they're implying, because they're implying that it's just impossible for women.
Right.
For if you just look at that show, it'll just make you so mad, and so I just block it out.
Exactly. Well, I think I emailed you about Prashant Doshi. He's also an MIT grad. And he also spoke at a recent conference, and he was talking about how he's looking to exclusively invest in women entrepreneurs.
Oh.
So, yeah,
Okay.
that's actually great because, there's so many female entrepreneurs out there, but I just don't see, even in my email where I get I'll get reminders from Forbes, like the latest funding to a specific startup. Not a lot are female, and not a lot is happening in that sector of the world over there. So you're right, that's got to change.
Well, there are strong women, and there are women who can be trained, and there are women who can get apprenticeships, and so that's part of what I do. So I put on an education class for angel investors. You just say, look, you could be an angel investor if you learned these things. This is the journey that everybody else has gone through, and you could also think about being an angel investor. And everybody is scared at the beginning. I have been so fortunate because I have attended meetings of the Angel Capital Association. I went to their summit. They have a summit every year. They have regional meetings. They train you. People come up and they say, hey, I learned about angel investing. These are the mistakes that I made. Yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I lost money on this company, and I made money on this company. And this is why, and these are my strategies, and it's really, really collaborative and empowering. And so that is how we get over the initial resistance, by just encouraging people to look at it like, a lot of people, they don't have any problem writing a check to a politician who says he's going to create jobs, but they have a hard time writing a check to an entrepreneur who's standing in front of them saying, I'm going to create jobs, because this is the weird psychological thing. When you make a donation to a philanthropic cause, you're 100% guaranteed to never get a penny back. When you invest in an early stage entrepreneur, you might make 10 times your money, or you might not make your money back. Why is it harder? Why is that harder? It's because there's a risk. We're trained to avoid risk, but people don't have a problem making a philanthropic gift. So that there's this new trend called program-based investing, where program-based investing is, hey, have your foundation write a check for the explicit goal of trying to, make the world a better place, educate people about entrepreneurship, try to create jobs. And if you win, you'll have a bigger foundation. If you don't, well, you'll have achieved your mission of making philanthropic gifts out of your foundation. Yeah,
I mean, the one thing about philanthropic gifts is that once the check leaves, there's really no, you can't really track how it's doing. When you invest, you can track the progress of that investment. And
right.
That makes sense because, philanthropy is great. But when you're just giving money out and there's really no way to track the progress or the success of what it's doing, investing in entrepreneurs, even at the angel and seed level, I mean, you could monitor it, you could see what's going on, you could watch it grow if it's doing well. So yeah, you're right.
You can serve on a board. If you're on the board, you can ask for financials. You can get the financial statements. You can tour. You can have the board meeting at the company. You can look around, see if let's see the inventory that you have. Let's see the new equipment that you got. Let's look and how are you doing with sales? Do you need help?
Right.
A lot of people you have to show up and say, do you need help? What can I do for you? A lot of people have a lot of expertise. People are retiring and they still have a lot of years of activity ahead of them. So angel investing is great for people who don't want to be retired. They want to be partly active, but they also want to have the ability to go on vacation.
Right. Cool. So I wanted to cover a couple topics in your book. First chapter was the entrepreneurial mind. What type of mentality or what type of mental preparation or experiences would you recommend to would-be entrepreneurs before they venture into starting a startup?
Well, I think that you really have to do a real serious accounting with yourself and your spouse and say, you know what, this is a dream that I've had. Compare it to the dream that some people have of climbing Mount Everest. This is a dream that I have, and I have some resources that are available for me to use to pursue my dream, okay? And I am going to be in charge, and I'm going to be responsible, and it's going to be me being responsible. And I need everybody around me to buy in and support me with this dream. Then I'm going to do it. And there's going to be limits. I'm not going to try this forever. I'm going to take initial risks, and I'm going to see how the market responds. So I am a big fan of saying, test it before you go, test it before you, don't just jump off a cliff. When people talk about jumping off a cliff, you can sort of take a little leap down a mountain. Maybe, you jump 5 feet, jump 5 feet, jump 5 feet. Do the customers want to buy this thing? There are great programs to help you test that.
Right.
There are so many accelerators these days. Spend 3 months testing whether anybody actually wants this. Will anybody actually buy this? What does the customer say? What do you need to have? If the customer gives you something concrete like a signed purchase order that says if you manufacture this, X quantity of units that meet this specification, then I will buy this. I will buy this many for this price. That's the best thing you can do. Then it's low risk. Right. Someone can finance that signed purchase order. That's what people want.
Right. Now, do you think there's a high failure rate of entrepreneurs who are maybe insecure or care way too much about what others think about them and their failures, or if they fail?
Yeah, that would be that's something that you should be able to fix if you kind of blast through it. If you're really honest about your psychology, and you say, "Look, I need everybody to support me, and I'm either getting the support, yes, or not getting the support, no. Why am I getting support? Why am I not getting support?" And then you're clear and you say, "I can't do this unless I have the support," or "I will do this, and I need you to support me." You're just being explicit. That's good communication. Then people can blast on through, and they can say, "Well, I was worried. I'm worried. What if we spend all our money on this and we lose our house and then we become homeless? What then?
Right.
What are the true fear? What's the true fear?" And then the person says, "Well, then I'll get another job." What if you don't get another job? Okay, after what period of time is this? Do we go to Plan B? What is our Plan B? What's our parachute? What do we do? Right. Well, there are cases where the entrepreneur moved into the wife's parents' basement because they bet it all on red and they didn't raise the money that they needed, and they were highly motivated to go out and close their next sale.
Right. So that brings us to chapter 2, making the decision to go for it.
Yep.
And I found myself in Jeff Osborne's position a few times, where you have a limited financial runway and you're just waiting for something to just break. So my question is, what is it with entrepreneurs just clinging on to like an event happening and not really seeing the writing on the walls? Like at what point should they be like, all right, I need to either pivot or, do something else that's has a positive financial response? Because sometimes people cling on to an idea. They think they're going to make money tomorrow, and it's just sometimes they got to rely on sales because that leads everything.
Right. So it's really good if you start the business after you've figured out how to get some sales. So there are people who just want to do R&D. They really would like to just do R&D, and they want to do R&D on a project that they want. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's good to kind of hand over your ego to the data. Like whether you're handing over your ego to the big data of export check that's saying, not Denmark, but Brazil, or we don't really need you to do any more R&D on that topic. What about if you actually did the thing that the customer wanted? So I have, I know examples along those lines. Sometimes you should start out not by making a product, but doing a services business because it's lower risk.
Right.
You just get started. You can do your products later. What if you have to start out by consulting? Whatever the market wants from you.
Yeah,
you have to listen,
sense.
and it's hard to listen.
Correct. Now here's a question that's kind of relevant to opportunity zones. What about entrepreneurs in high poverty cities or opportunity zones with no access to capital?
Yep.
And they may have a really short cash runway to test out an idea and really have no path to recovery if they fail. Like, what should they do?
Yep. Well, I can tell you, I'm sitting here in a suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I had spent 3.5 years inside Century City Tower, inside the 30th Street Industrial Corridor, which if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. But Northwest Side Economic Development Corporation is an anchor of that region. So I'm working with the Rotary Club of Milwaukee to ask basic questions like, how do these entrepreneurs get started? Where do they go for support? The true answer is church basements are even more inclusive than Starbucks. Yes, everybody says, oh, entrepreneurs get started at Starbucks writing things down on a napkin. No, for some people it's a church basement. You know, there's entities called, like in Milwaukee we have WIBIC, Women's Business Initiative, WWBIC. There's BizStarts. There are city-funded entities. There are accelerators. There are accelerators where you just have to sign up. There are entities where you can go through mentoring and get support from mentors. And then what you don't know, what you can't really see, is that behind these organizations, behind these city-supported entities and state-supported entities, there are a lot of bankers. And there are a lot of investors who are watching to see who comes through.
Right.
You can't really see it, but they're waiting and they're watching and they're saying, well, whose revenues are going up? You know, for the first person, if they say, you know, what I really want to do is I want to start a bakery, I want to do a catering business. Okay, well, here are the fundamentals, the tools. You need a loan. You know, can you get a loan of $50,000 or less or whatever? Well, maybe somebody is, you know, among those people who have all these interesting products, some of them are going to pull ahead, and some of them are going to, you know, be a little bit more fundable for scaling up.
Right.
And so there's people that are watching. If you start with these programs that are available for anyone who wants to, you know, rent a truck and do a food truck business, or buy a truck and do a food truck business, there are things where you can grow from that. Did you do a good job on that food truck business? Do you want to buy a second truck? Do you want to start catering? You know, do you want to, you know, just anybody, anywhere can start. I think there's a lot of support, and I know about it because, you know, I provide some of that.
Right. So in your chapter 3, you said it's titled "Setting Up Shop." What are your thoughts?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on incubators, and what kind of entrepreneur should pursue an incubator? And would you recommend Oz communities to set them up?
Yeah, that's a good point. So, well, the book's titled The Venture Cafe. If you go online, venturecafe.com, there are these Thursday gatherings that are set up, and a lot of them are set up in opportunity zones, including there's some set up in St. Louis and in Boston, in parts of Boston that have been traditionally struggling, and they just move these Thursday night gatherings into the difficult part of cities so that everybody. Lots of people with money will show up on Thursday night to just learn and share their wisdom. I think that opportunity zones have a great opportunity to just, you know, okay, the reason why I keep on saying Thursday night is because Thursday night between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. is a time when people should be able to get off work and go somewhere different to meet new people.
Right.
You know, if they want to do something interesting with their career, that's really all anybody's asking for. But the rest of the week, a place can be as down at heel as it wants to be or as it is, but you know you can kind of make it into, you know, people can come together for a set period of time to learn and to network and to share a beverage.
Yeah, I think that has to be replicated nationally.
Yep.
In community, like opportunity zone communities should really like start encouraging it, setting it up. Because someone has to lead it. Because a lot of these communities have to take responsibility for their own success. Hopefully, they don't think very wealthy investors are just going to come in and wave a magic cash wand. But I think that's something this is something that they'd have to initiate on their own. So yeah, that's a good idea.
I think you basically have to start out with somebody who knows how to start businesses and has a history of making money and has a plan.
Right.
Excuse me, and then help them kind of direct them to putting down roots in a new place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's for a person who's in an opportunity zone, they might have to kind of get up and get somewhere else, like just relaunch. You know, people go off to college or go off to an empowering. They might have to leave and come back.
Right. Yeah, because you need that fresh perspective, because you only know what you're only experiencing. And like when I was growing up, Waterbury, Connecticut was where I grew up. It's also a city, but it's not a huge city. Yep. It's a tertiary city. So you're not looking at like tall buildings and like envisioning like I want to be something in these buildings. It's just like old 60s and 70s buildings that look, the architects look like they went from there to building prisons. But when you go to a city like New York City or Boston, you kind of get that like energy. You see other things going on, and you know you get inspired by that. You see things that you've never seen before, and it's literally, you know, from me, it's 2 hours to Boston or an hour and a half south to New York City. And, you know, I've learned a lot from actually working in both cities. So, yeah, you're right. Sometimes you have to literally, like, get out, make new connections, and if you think you need to come back, come back. Yeah, that's a good point. Your fourth chapter, protecting your information, your IP. This was an important chapter to me because, you know, I wish I had this book again. I said when I started in 1999, I had no idea how to locate a specialized patent attorney, and one that dealt with totally with the specific topics that we were dealing with. This guy was definitely not in my best interest, literally charging me by the minute. So, like I said, if I had this book back then, it probably would have saved me lots of time and energy. What do you have? What do you have for advice for entrepreneurs who need to find a quality IP attorney who the entrepreneurs might be from a rural or high poverty community where these specialized attorneys don't often exist? Like, where would they start?
Go to the library and check out the book Patent It Yourself.
Okay.
If they don't have it in your rural library, ask if you can get it on interlibrary loan.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, you should always make sure that you should always work up the courage to talk to somebody you know who seems like they have it together. Someone in your town will know of a good patent lawyer.
Right.
Someone in your community will have heard of a good patent lawyer. And think about contests. Let's see. First of all, try to patent it yourself. Network your way to a patent attorney. And, let's see. I'm thinking about a very small town that I know of. People who run the library, people who are on the library board should be able to help you. Right.
Yeah, because I don't think a lot of people rely on library resources as much anymore. They think like Google has it all. But librarians have a pretty deep wealth of information.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good idea. Like back then, let's see, 1999, you know, Google wasn't, or I probably didn't know of Google, so I wasn't using Google to find an attorney, but some people recommended it, a few to me, and it's, wow. Not only did they not like specialize, I just think that they're more about billing by the 15-minute increment. So that's something that a lot of people have to be careful of. And
yeah, I mean, if somebody is that obsessed with being, you know, if they're really not trying to be a good person, they're just not going to volunteer to serve on the board of a library.
Right. So that answers that question. So let's talk about VCs. So in chapter 6, you know, what VCs look for in evaluating new proposals. You mentioned one VC gets about 100 emails and calls a day. How do entrepreneurs with no connections to angels or VCs find a trusted referral? Like, where do they start to build this bridge to investors? You know, that's going to be a major hurdle for maybe businesses starting in opportunity zones, for example. Because there's not really a lot of investors around, or because if there was, they wouldn't be called an opportunity zone. So,
okay, so here's the short answer. I am in Milwaukee, so I know Milwaukee. Let's try to apply it to your city, okay? So look up Northwest Side Community Development Corporation, Howard Snyder, Howard Snyder.
okay.
This is a community development corporation. There are many community development corporations across the United States, okay? Then there's WBIC, WWBIC, okay? If you were in Milwaukee and you had no money at all and you showed up, this would be the place to start from zero, okay? But you're not, if you're wherever you are, look up your local community development corporation. And if you have to go to the library and ask a librarian, where is my community development corporation? Then do that. Because behind them, there are lots of donors, okay? And some of those donors are banks.
Right.
So bankers have to put aside some money for community development. I don't know the exact phrases or how it's, there's some money associated for community development. Okay, there are people who are looking for investment opportunity. So you starting from zero with no network at all.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in Milwaukee, I would say definitely go to BizStartMilwaukee.com, BizStart. Go to WBIC, go to Community Development Corporation. Those people all know who the other ones are, and they know who they are in your community.
Right.
Okay, behind them there are the donors and the sponsors and the volunteers. Those people have money. Okay, they're looking for good businesses, so maybe they'll have a class of 100 different businesses. Maybe you can join that class, okay? Within that class, if you are investable, fundable, if you're looking to build a business where you want to bring in some investments and you want to take care of somebody else's money and you're not just doing it for yourself, they'll figure that out. You can talk to them. You can tell people what you want to do. Now, there are businesses where really you should just keep it for yourself, and that's fine. There's these community development corporations. They can help you decide what category you're in.
Right. Yeah, that's great information. I wish I knew that too, coming out of college. But this is great advice for anybody starting up now, whether you're in an opportunity zone or not. That's great. So in your book, you wrote about the Muddy Charles, and I love the concept about it. And I think most communities should really adopt this type of connection point to bringing entrepreneurs and VCs and angels together. What should you recommend communities do, including opportunity zones, non-opportunity zones, cities? What do you think they should do to build this type of ecosystem? Like, it's not that hard, but what would you recommend them to do?
So I tried to figure out how to make it just as broad as possible, and there's two words that really resonate: free beer.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
free beer. Who doesn't want a chance to think about free beer, even if you don't drink? Free beer, free coffee.
Right.
So that's what this venture cafe concept is. So who wants to pay for the free beer? A person who wants to take credit for economic development, whether they're a bank, whether they're an attorney, a law firm, whether they're, an economic development corporation. Hey, if they want to say, we sponsor the best entrepreneurial networking support organization in our city because we're great, and because, they have their ways to get money, and they have their ways to get philanthropic dollars out of their wealthy clients. Mm-hmm. So if they were just to follow this venture cafe model, hey, Thursday night we're going to have class, we're going to have networking, we're going to have office hours, we're going to have free beer, we're going to, there are ways that a community can be self-policing.
Right.
If somebody comes in and everybody, first time you get a 1. The second time you get a 2. Your name, 1. Your name, 2. The 300th time you get 300. So how many times have you been there? How well have you done with the community? If someone is, bad, hey, cut them off,
Right.
But the people who really want to try and be part of networking, part of mentoring, part of building the community, let them come back. And, so I think that's what works. It's a good model. And I think it's helped a lot of people build their careers and build successful businesses.
Yeah, that's a great. Whoever initiated it is pretty much genius. But the Muddy Charles is what? Is it a bar or on the MIT campus? It's a bar on the MIT campus. It's graduate students. It's
sort of inexpensive. The cheapest beer around is not free, but it's like super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're talking $1 a cup. I don't know who pays for it, probably Graduate Student Association. But it was just a bar with a really good vibe where you could talk about your project. And really, Joost Bonson was the one who invited people to his Muddy Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
And he would invite people, and he would try to encourage them to go and talk to somebody. So the whole concept of bridging the connection, lowering the risk, lowering the how difficult is it to talk to somebody without anything implied. So the concept of the Muddy was women can talk to men can talk to women. Nobody has to be afraid of anybody hitting on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take that static away. We're all here to build businesses. This is for profit. You've got some skills. I need some skills. I need somebody to do operations, someone to do human resources, somebody to write some code, somebody to do sales, somebody to do all these things that I need to do. Who can I find? Who likes my idea? Who's going to be good? Which patent attorneys aren't going to steal my stuff? It's all free advice, free mentoring within the confines of this bar, within the confines of this time period of 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. And everybody understands, this is where we call it marketing, call it networking, business development, but within this, no one's charging you anything. No one's charging you for the beer, no one's charging you for the advice, no one's charging you for anything. It's just all safe.
Right.
And then, you can do the rest of your life outside of it.
So it's that easy. I mean, there's really no infrastructure. It's just you meet somewhere, and then potentially millions or billions of dollars could be produced eventually out of this very simple connection point. And surprisingly,
well, sure,
surprisingly, a lot of these communities don't have this simple structure set up.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we have 8,762 opportunity zones.
Right.
But if we broadcast this everywhere and wherever there's people listening that are opportunity zone leaders, they could take this information and start building on it right away. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's much needed. You know what I mean? You don't have to build buildings. All you need is a place to connect people.
Right. You need sort of a designated place to tell people to go at a certain time so that when they show up, someone else will be there to welcome them at the door and to tell that person who's got it number one and they're afraid because they've never done this before, and
right.
Maybe that's okay, that we're glad you came. That's the concept of the Cheers bar. You want to go where everybody knows your name. You want to go where everybody's glad you came.
Right. Yeah, I like it. When I read that, I was like, that is another thing I wish So when I started my business, it wasn't designated an opportunity zone back then. It was called an information technology zone. So, it was put on by the community development, and we moved our business there, and then as soon as we moved our business downtown, lights out. No one talked about ITZ anymore. No one talked about funding entrepreneurs. I was like, and to my partners who were both Harvard grads at the time, they were like, dude, we got to go to like Silicon Valley where the money is. And I was kind of like adamant. So they're putting on an information technology zone. Maybe we could make something happen here. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. But this is all information that people could learn from and prevent from happening with this new wave of potential investments.
Yep.
But now we educate the future.
Yep. Learn from past.
Yeah.
Go forward.
So, quick question. What do you look for when you invest in entrepreneurs and startups? What's the one characteristic that says this person has what you're looking for?
Well, there's two things. The first one is grit, Grit,
Yep.
The ability to stay motivated and keep going and acknowledge difficulties, but continue to stay motivated and continue to keep going. The second one is something to sell, ability to sell. So there's got to be a salesperson. I've heard it said the CEO's middle name has to be sales.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to look for a team, and somebody on the team has to be able to sell, and they've got to be able to sell something. We need to be able to understand why the customer bought the thing, what it does for the customer, why it makes sense.
Right.
Those are two things.
Okay. Yeah, grit. That's like, I think people really need to know like what that is. And when you're going through difficult times, you just got to keep plowing through, because if you just throw your hands up in the air at the first hurdle, then you're just never going to make it in any type of startup. So grit is like getting your brain under control to be able to handle every single hurdle that's coming at you and blast through them.
And the shorthand for grit is, hey, is this a person who knows how to make phone calls?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who knows how to reach out, who knows how to approach people they don't know at a networking event?
Right.
Because, there are a lot of people in the world today who don't know how to make phone calls, and they're afraid. And it's like, okay, let's just blast through that.
Mm-hmm.
So make that phone call, have it not get answered, leave that voicemail, follow up with an email, send that text message, show up at the networking event, reach out on LinkedIn, exchange that business card, and follow up again.
Mm-hmm.
And repeat and repeat and repeat. And don't worry if, someone didn't want to hear from you because they're afraid of the phone ringing, and they're afraid that maybe you're a, scam artist, but you're not.
Right.
So then you follow up again, and and they judge you on the sound of your voice, and they judge you on whether or not you were reliable and followed up like you said you were going to. So that's the way to measure grit. But if the answer is, I am not the right person for you, you are not at the stage that I am looking for, then acknowledge that and say thank you. Who is?
Right.
Well, I recommend, this is an organization which is explicitly set up to help you go from 0 to 1. Great. And we support that, because everybody has only a certain amount of time to perform philanthropy. Right.
Well, that leads us to your chapter 7 on perseverance, which definitely has grit built into it. You wrote about Barry Starr. Could you brief us on his perseverance? Because for most people in his experiences, probably would have had a string of panic attacks, and many would have probably quit after their first hurdle or deal breakdown. This guy was so driven and not willing to give up. How didn't these VCs recognize this super important characteristic?
So I'll leave it to Barry to tell the story in his own words in the book. But you're exactly right that a lot of times venture capitalists miss out on the entrepreneurs who are most deserving and have the most grit. And it's up to you to decide how much grit you want to have and how much time you want to spend doing this business. And things change. Things can go up and down. A new competitor can enter your field,
right?
And make it more difficult for you. In the banking world, there are lots of banks that exist already. There are lots of innovative new ways of doing financial transactions. So it's I don't know. We all have to pivot, and we all have to decide how much time we want to spend on any idea.
Right. Yeah. That was a pretty interesting story. It was one hurdle, then another. I was like, I don't know, because you in your beginning chapter you wrote about another person who just had the similar issue, but it wound up failing. But in the long run, he did really well. But then Barry Starr finally hit the most absolute bottom base structure you could probably touch, and then just skyrocketed from that point. So, yeah, that was a very interesting story.
Yep. Where is the thing? Where is your lost item located? In the last place you look.
Right.
Well, you got to keep looking until you find it.
Yep. Now, your chapter 11, The Dark Corner. Could you give us a standout story or two that you think people should know about in this chapter? Because there's quite a few reality checks.
The Dark Corner is explicitly, we didn't use their names, so sort of somebody speaking in the dark, their identity is disguised on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And just because sometimes there's abuse that happens. These are just stories that I just found abusive. And when you always need to maintain your own. In my opinion, you should maintain your own residence. Don't live on somebody else's couch.
Mm-hmm.
I think a person should be able to figure out how to be able to pay rent, to have a roof over their head, throughout the period of the business, and they should be able to, I think that's necessary. These are some stories about a person who didn't have enough resources set aside, didn't maintain his own personal residence, wound up essentially being a slave to another person,
right,
and had to go home to their parents, feeling embarrassed. But at least they had parents to go home to.
Yeah.
And you can. So that's why you need to maintain your personal integrity and decide, I'm going to do this. This is the opportunity that I'm going to have. I need to have a certain amount of support from my community. This is the amount of risk I'm going to take. And when I reach this point, either the customers are going to buy and they're going to have a track record of buying. I'm going to go out to my community development corporation. I'm going to get training. I'm going to get education. I might get a loan. I'm going to start that. But if the answer is just no one wants to buy this thing, then I'm going to stop and I'm going to sell my resume for a while, get a job, earn up some more money, and figure out, well, what does the world want from me? Because there are things you can sell that the world wants to buy, but
right.
The question is, what is it?
Exactly. So a few more questions and we'll wrap up. What do you look for in an investment, and how do you like to be approached?
Email is always good. Starting with email with an executive summary, non-confidential. We don't like confidentiality agreements because we're just a network of people who like to talk. We're a network of people who like to share due diligence on deals, so send a non-confidential executive summary.
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem in the world. I've got a solution. The world wants to pay me to make this problem go away. This is my product. I like it when people are bold enough to think that they can expand globally. I like it when people say, I'm very interested in learning more about the Case Startup Grand Challenge. I really would like to learn. I think that there's somebody at the Korea Institute for Design Promotion who would like to hear about my business. I would like to figure out how to make an international partnership. I am not afraid. I want to take myself out of my existing community. I want to make friends and grow. I like to hear that you're taking advantage of the support that exists. Like, hey, did you go to a venture cafe? Did you go to a networking event? Then, can you sell? What can you sell? Okay, I want to invest in the people who can sell the best. Of all the people that I heard of, and where can I add value? Can I add value by helping you expand into Korea? Okay, what are you manufacturing in the United States? What have you figured out how to sell? I want you to use those community development corporations and business plan competitions and incubators and accelerators to test your thing and come to me when you said, we figured it out. We figured out this is what we can sell and we're good at it and I want money to scale.
Right. Now, do you are you seeking to invest in opportunity zone businesses or funds, or are you sticking to what you traditionally do?
We're open. We're open to everything.
Okay.
We're open-minded, and we're just let the entrepreneur tell me what their idea is. Let them look. Let the market talk.
So, if you had to give advice to an entrepreneur or an opportunity zone fund seeking investments from your firm, what would you recommend?
Lead with revenue. Open the conversation by saying, we have found a way to sell product. This is our product. These are our customers. This is the type of customers. I don't need their name. Our revenue is trending upward. We figured it out. We want to work with you because you have expertise, and we value the expertise that you have, your particular expertise, the particular kinds of companies that you've worked with in the past. That's how I would kind of lead with it.
Great, yeah, that's great information. Your whole book really gets in the mind of both the entrepreneur and the investor. So, and it fits our channel because we're looking to connect to the two somehow, but provide the audio experience that allows an entrepreneur to figure out what they need to do and then learn how they need to connect with VCs or angels if they never have. So your book really lays it out in a very nice way. And even though it was published in 2002, it's definitely timeless.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, Teresa Esser, thank you so much. I'm a big fan of you, your passion, and your mission. And if you haven't picked up her book, The Venture Cafe, you can go get it on Amazon today. The book is a must-read for any entrepreneur starting out. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure.